What's happening, YouTube? Cowboy here, and welcome to part 1 of my 2-part guide for MechWarrior Online. Now, while the game already does have a great tutorial in place to get you up and running when it comes to combat, one of the most common things I hear, especially from new players, is just how overwhelming the Mech Lab can be. So in today's video, we're going to be going in-depth into the Mech Lab, look at every single component of it, so basically everything you guys see on the screen right now, we're going to be explaining. And then after this, we're going to be making a second video where we'll go in-depth into the difference between clan and inner sphere mechs and build a mech step by step along with you guys. So the first thing I'm going to do is strip this mech on out of all the equipment, and we're going to give just a general overview of the various aspects of the Mech Lab. So obviously this breaks down your mech by each individual piece. We have our arms, we have our torso, head, center torso, right leg, left leg. Over on this side, we have various upgrades we can put into our mech. Down here, we can select our engine, or alternatively, we can also select our engine standard or Excel over here. In the warehouse, of course, we can change this between column or expanded. Personally, I really like expanded. I think that just looks a little bit cleaner. But we have our listing of weapons right here. Ammo will only show up when we have a weapon that needs ammo. Obviously, in equipment, we can choose between different kinds of sensors and a couple miscellaneous things, such as heat sinks or cases. We have engines, and then lastly, we have modules, where we can put on different consumables or bonuses for our mech and the particular weapons we are running. So looking at each individual component, one of the first things I want to point out are the hard points. Now, I feel your hard points are very important to pay attention to because obviously this is going to dictate what types of weapons you can put on the mech. And you can always see them at the top of a part. So, we have one energy hardpoint here on the right arm. The right torso has 2 missile hardpoints and 2 ballistics. Same with the left torso. The left arm has an energy and then an AMS hardpoint. Now, just because you have tons of hardpoints doesn't necessarily mean you have to use them all. And for example, if we take an AC-20, we can see that almost fills up the entire left torso. Alternatively, we could do 2 AC-5s and then 2 LRM-5 with Artemis. Now, while these are two very different things, the AC-20, looking at it, we can see the damage is listed at 20. Our AC-5s are listed at 5, and our LRM-5s are listed at 5 damage. So while we have two very different loadouts here, in theory, both torsos have the potential to do 20 damage each, just by different means. And the point I'm really trying to make here is just because you have tons of hardpoints doesn't necessarily mean you have to use them all. The most important thing to remember with your hardpoints is that that's going to give you an idea of the type of weaponry you can put on your mech, so that when it comes to building it, you have an expectation of what you're going to work towards. Obviously, right below that, we have the individual armor. On your right arm, left arm, and legs, you only control the primary armor, or the front armor, if you will. On your torso, you can control both the front and the rear armor. And you can see as one armor goes down, the other armor will go up. So moving on from there, let's talk about our upgrades. Now, in our upgrades, we have ferrofibrosis, double heat sinks, endosteel, and Artemis. And we're going to talk about what each of these mean and why they're important to you. So right now, I am at 22 tons out of my max tonnage of 90. Now, ferrofibrosis and endosteel both will take 14 critical slots, which means some of these slots you see right here, it'll take those up, but it will reduce the total tonnage of the mech. Now, in general, endosteel will always be superior to ferrofibrosis. And this can especially be confusing for new players because endosteel, made from lighter endosteel and weighing 5% of the mech's maximum tonnage, but occupies 14 critical slots. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. And when we put that on, we can see our tonnage does go down quite a bit, but we've had slots change over to dynamic structure slots. So just to give you guys a better look at what that actually means, right now we see empty slots everywhere. If we click endosteel, we can see that it turns into dynamic slots. And if we, say, put another AC-5 here, we can see that we've lost more empty slots and we have more dynamic slots. And basically what's happening is the dynamic slots, it gives us a set number of slots available to fill up. And as we begin to fill, those are going to move around until eventually we are out of dynamic slots. Now, alternatively, the ferrofibrosis also will take up 14 critical slots. But as you can see, our weight is only going down to 20.7. And you might ask, well, what's the point of taking ferrofibrosis then? If you look at it, standard BattleMech armor that provides 32 points of protection per ton 12% more protection per ton, but it occupies 14 critical slots and weighs less. And the important thing here is this actually isn't true with the ferrofibrosis. Right now, the ferrofibrosis doesn't actually offer you any more protection. Right now, the armor we have does not change at all with ferrofibrosis. So if you're trying to gain tonnage, endosteel will always be superior for you over ferrofibrosis since you're getting less tonnage and you're gaining more slots. Now with that being said, if you don't need the space, you could of course put both on and get your tonnage down even lower, but of course now we are down to a very limited amount of structure slots, so do keep that in mind. Moving on from there, heat sinks. We have our standard heat sink, or we have double heat sinks. Double heat sinks are 40% more efficient than a standard, but they require triple the amount of space. So if we go over to our heat sinks, you can see standard heat sink will take 1 slot, and you can see my heat management is really bad right now. Actually, we're at 0 out of 2. Let's put on some heat sinks here. Actually, that's not going to matter because I don't have an engine on yet. Huh. Alright, we'll go up to 250. Let me just slap on some weapons here, just so we start getting heat management values. Okay, so right now if we look down at our mech stats, we can see our heat management is 1.07 over 2. In general, I like to aim for efficiency over 1.0. Obviously, the higher the better. Now, if we go into equipment and we put on 1 heat sink, we can see we've gone up from 0.7 to 0.13. Instead, if we were to go double heat sinks, we can see immediately our heat management jumps up to 1.44 just because of the base heat management that comes along with having our engine. And putting in a double heat sink, we can see it's up to 1.5 now. So the point I'm trying to make here for you guys is that if you have the space, double heat sinks are always going to be superior. On that note, with a bigger engine, which I don't know if we can, there we go, we got big enough. Once you reach a certain engine size, you will have slots directly in the engine for heat sinks. So we can drop it right in there, which it didn't go. We'll pull one out and put it in. We can see now we have it located in the engine, and we have more slots freed up over here. Next up, we have missile guidance and Artemis. Now, what's going to happen with Artemis is that Artemis will tighten the spread of the missiles. It's also going to decrease the lock time, and it's going to increase the tracking. With that being said, of course, it's going to make the ammo more expensive, and it's going to make them take up more slots. So, for example, if I went with LRM-15s, and with this particular mech, I was running 4 LRM-15s, we can see we still have quite a few slots right now. You know, we have plenty of dynamic structure slots left. We've only taken up about half of our torsos. If I switch up to Artemis, though, we can see our LRM-15s are taking up just a little bit more space than they were previously. So, this begs the question, when do we want to use Artemis? And what it really comes down to is what you are trying to hit and what type of missiles you're running. With short-range missiles, in general, you're going to be so close to the target that Artemis isn't going to really impact you. On top of that, you know, some of the short-range missiles, just because of the distance, you don't really have much of a chance of them locking on and tracking into your target. With the long-range missiles, on the other hand, you're usually arcing these, you know, over mountains, over long ranges, and trying to hit your target from afar. So in the case of this particular mech, if I reset it back to what it was, you know, this is a mech that is basically focused around heavy usage of the long-range missiles. So in my particular case here, Artemis is quite beneficial because I'm going to have the quicker lock time, of course, and then on top of that, it's going to be a lot easier for these volleys that I fire out to connect with their targets. So moving on from missiles, we're going to talk about regular engines versus extra large engines. Now, as you can see right now, I'm at 58 on my tonnage. If I go up to an XL engine, you can see I've just gained 5 tons, dropping down to 53. So what does this mean? It means the XL engines are lighter. It's going to give us more tonnage for weapons, but as you can see, we have engine slots here in our right torso and our left torso now. And it's important to note that with an XL engine, you know, right now, if somebody blows up our right torso or our left torso, it doesn't matter. We're still in the fight. With an XL engine on an inner sphere mech, if one of our torsos goes, our whole mech will die because we have part of our engine located in each torso. Now this is only as inner sphere. If you're playing as a clan mech, Having a torso taken out with an XL engine instead inflicts a heavy performance penalty onto your mech. If I remember correctly, it's about a 50% speed decrease, which, needless to say, even though you don't blow up immediately, having your speed cut in half is quite deadly on the battlefield. So the point is, if you really need the tonnage and you're more confident in maneuvering your mechs, XL is a decent choice to go with, but obviously it comes with the risk of being more vulnerable in your right and left torso. Moving on from here, let's talk about armor. Now, obviously, we have armor all over the place. You know, we have front armor, we have rear armor, and you might wonder, you know, how do I balance out my armor? How do I know where I want the most armor? Where's it going to help me the most? Now, there's a couple different things you can do. For more advanced players, it's arguably better to have your armor spread out, because as you're in combat, you're going to be twisting, and what you're aiming to do is, let's say I have you know, all of my weapons loaded up on my left torso and my left arm, but I don't have much in my right arm. After I fire, I can twist my mech, and basically my goal is to take hits to the right side of my mech and not the left side of my mech. And on that note, that's why it's going to help to have the armor spread around. Alternatively, one other thing you could do is, you know, let's say I have, like I said, same scenario, I have almost everything on the left and the right, or on the left torso and left arm. I could strip the tonnage off on this side and then instead reinforce any other components where I'm going to need armor. And you know, the benefit of doing that obviously is that the you know, the arms that aren't being used, it's not going to matter because they're not being used. You know, doesn't matter if I have armor there. If they blow up right now, they wouldn't impact me in any way. So the point I'm trying to make is that there's a lot of different things you can do when it comes to armor. You know, areas that aren't being used at all, you could strip the armor off of them so that, you know, people will target those in particular. If you're better at twisting your mech and kind of soaking shots, you can also do that. The best thing I can suggest here is really, it's going to come down to your play style, but just try it out and see what's going to work the best for the way that you play your mech. So next, we're going to talk about ammo. Now, an important component in MechWarrior Online is ammo and ammo explosions. So basically, when my armor gets blown away on my left torso, every single component in here, the case, the Artemis, so let's take off the case for now. So without the case, both the missiles and all three of these armors have a chance, or all three of these ammos have a chance to be hit. And when ammo in particular is hit after your armor has been stripped away, it can explode. And in general, ammo exploding while it's inside your mech will mean certain death. So what does this mean when it comes to ammo? Well, there's a couple things. We can spread ammo out all over the place just to have a, you know, lesser chance of being hit in one particular area. The alternative, of course, is we could group ammo up in one particular place and protect it with a case. Now, what does this exactly mean? Now, the case, as you can see right here, case ammunition containment prevents ammunition explosions from damaging components outside of the case-equipped component. So, in this particular case, what would happen? In this particular case with the case, right now, the way my left torso is set up, if my left torso armor was blown off, all right, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I have a 7 out of 8 chance that additional damage to that left torso is going to hit ammo. That's going to cause an ammo explosion, and that ammo explosion is likely going to end up killing my mech. If there's a case on, the same situation could happen, but if ammo does get hit and explodes, it's only going to impact my left torso, and this ammo blowing up won't impact any other components. So really, this is going to come down to a, you know, it really does come down to preference. Some people like to group all their ammo in one spot and keep it protected with a case. That way, if the ammo goes, it's not going to impact your mech at all. As I mentioned, some other people might want to spread it out in small little groups and just kind of lessen the chance. So, you know, having it spread out like this, even though in theory there's more chances that my ammo could blow up, you know, over here it's only a 1 in 3 chance. You know, they could end up hitting the heatsink, they could hit the pulse laser, they could hit the actuators or the shoulders. So what it's going to come down to is, depending on how much ammo you want to run, You know, if you're worried about explosions and you find that in combat you're having ammo explode a lot, then protecting it with a case could be a very good benefit. Alternatively, spread it out enough or put it in areas where people are unlikely to shoot. A very common thing you'll see is people putting ammo in the feet when it comes to assault mechs, because usually people aren't going to focus with assault, so I feel that my ammo is very safe down here. While we're still here, next thing we're going to talk about is the other types of equipment. So first up, we have the Beagle Active Probe. Now the Beagle Active Probe is going to increase our sensor range, speed up targeting data, and it can detect any mechs that are shut down at close range. And lastly, but most importantly, it will counter ECM. Now, to basically break this down, what this means is that the range boost is going to be by about 25%, making probes very, very helpful for mechs that are running lots of long-range missiles. It's also going to speed up your targeting, though. So in general, if you have the slots and the tonnage available, there's no reason not to take an active probe. In particular, any mechs that are running streak short-range missiles, that are these ones right here, streak short-range missiles that fire 2 missiles, tracking that will always hit their intended target. If you are using streaks, you always want to use an active probe. And the reason for this is, as I mentioned, they counter ECM. And ECMs can basically block out the ability for targets to lock onto you. So on that note, if you're using a missile that works strictly by locking onto a target and hitting them, if you run into a mech that has ECM, you'll never be able to lock onto it. And you'll basically be sitting there as a duck as it decides to shoot away at you until you are dead. So in short, Beagle active probes and alternatively the Clan active probes are very good to have in general if you have the tonnage and the slots available. If you are running a streak short-range missile setup, you always want to have an active probe along. As for the other equipment, we also have the command console. Now there's also targeting consoles on the Clan computers. The command console is what you get on the Inner Sphere computers, and similar to the Beagle active probe, there are just a lot of benefits coming from this. Of course, it's going to only take 1 slot, but it's going to take up 3 tons. So as you can see, looking back at that, we're getting an 18% level 1 zoom boost, a 24% level 2 zoom boost, advanced zoom boost goes up by 52%, sensor range boost, targeting time boost. So in general, the way to look at your consoles here is they are just giving you all around good benefits for your mech. But similar to the Beagle active probe or the Clan active probes, they're going to take up slots and they're going to take up tonnage. So now we're going to discuss our weapons in particular and what you want to take when it comes to, missiles versus energy versus ballistics. So looking at all 3 of these, one of the most important things to note is that when it comes to the penetration potential of a weapon and the damage potential of a weapon, all weapons will penetrate equally. So what I mean by this is my large laser is going to do 9 damage, okay? AC-10 is going to do 10 damage. While there's only a 1 damage difference, the ballistic isn't going to punch through armor any faster than the laser. And I know that's the case in a lot of games. In Elite Dangerous, you very much use lasers to burst down shields, and then you use your ballistics to strike components. That's the most obvious example that's coming to mind because that was the last game I played with a mechanic like that. But in a lot of games that are technical like this, you do see that situation where one weapon is better for one particular thing over another. And really what it's going to come down to with your weapons is just what you like. The lasers and the energy weapons, of course, you don't have to worry about ammo with them. In general, they are going to heat up more because you have this low cooldown and you can fire them over and over again. The ballistics, of course, you have to carry ammo, but with your ballistic, once that ballistic hits, that's your damage. Whereas the laser, you have to keep the laser trained on that target. So the point I'm making here is that when it comes to weapons, it's really going to come down to what you prefer. If you're good at keeping your reticle right on your target, lasers might be a good choice for you. If you're better at making pop shots and getting your damage in short intervals, ballistics might be a better weapon for you. But at the end of the day, both weapons have the same kill potential. And in terms of how much damage you're really going to do, it's going to come down to the actual damage stat that's listed with each weapon, and it's not going to have an impact on weapon type. So lastly, we're going to go into the modules. Now, modules are something that you can unlock that will help your mech. To get the modules, you go over into skills. And over in skills, we're going to go into pilot trees. And then we can see different mech boosts here. We can see different weapon boosts here. We can see consumable boosts here. We'll break this down. So let's say we'll go into cooldown, and I wanted, I want my, what do I want to pick up? I want Clan UIC 5 cooldown. So we can unlock this with General XP. There are 3 separate tiers to it. And there's the final tier. So now I have a 12% cooldown bonus for Clan Ultra AC5s. So if I go back over into the Mech Lab, over into the modules, me owned items. You can see, oh, it's not going to show up because I'm on a Inner Sphere mech, of course. But down here, we would see the Clan AC5 bonus. So basically, what I would suggest doing when it comes to modules, because of the fact that, you know, they can be expensive, they are going to add up. If there's a particular weapon type that you find you like a lot, in my case, the long-range laser and the long-range pulse laser, I use those a lot, so I picked up the maximum range for that for the Inner Sphere. And it is important to note that when it comes to picking up the particular weapon cooldown you want, is that you do have Inner Sphere and then you do have Clan. All the Clan items are abbreviated with CL UIC20, CL ERM, you know, Clan Medium Pulse Laser, Clan LRM5. You can see the other ones just AC20, ERPPC, LP Laser. They don't say, you know, IS for Inner Sphere, they're just listed. So do keep that in mind when it comes to unlocking stuff in the skills area. You don't want to end up accidentally unlocking something that you didn't want and then, you know, not have the ability to put on the weapon modules you want. But so your weapon modules, those are going to impact either the range or the cooldown of your weapons. As for your mech modules, there are a couple of different choices here under mech modules. You know, in general, I really like using either advanced seismic sensor on my kind of larger mechs. It's going to allow detections and allow me to kind of identify close those, you know, quick lightweight enemies that are sneaking up on me. Alternatively, you know, target decay, not too bad of a choice as well. It allows me to continue tracking a mech after they've gotten out of my sight range. Radar deprivation, a very good one if you're running a faster mech. It makes it so that the moment you're out of sight, target is going to lose sight of you. If you're going for kind of a long-range sniping type mech, the advanced zoom is a decent choice as well. You know, if you want to be really mobile, you have you have the hill climb, which will, you know, decrease the deceleration rate by 10% when you're going up slopes. If you want to be more of a brawler, you have improved gyros, reducing the amount of screen shake that you're going to take. So really, there's a lot of different mech modules, and it's really going to come down to what you feel works best with your mech. In general, you have 1 mech module, 2 weapon modules, and then the last one you will unlock. To unlock that last module, in a similar sense, once you get good with a particular mech, back under the skill tree, we'll go to the particular mech category. If I go to Mauler, and I go to my mech tree, you can see that, oh, why did I not get the speed tweak yet? Use that mech XP. After you get Elite, you can unlock Master and get yourself the final module slot, which is quite expensive. But now on my Mal 2P, I will have that slot available. So either way, hopefully after watching this video, you guys now have a good idea of everything you need to know when it comes to building your mech. Looking at my list here, one last thing I didn't mention is consumables over in the modules area. And I do want to note that consumables can be very good. Obviously, these are stuff that you're going to buy consumables after you have everything else, you know, and they can help, but consumables aren't going to be a massive game changer. You know, a good UAV can definitely, you know, help your team out a lot. It's going to show where the enemy team is at, but by no means feel that you have to pick up the consumables because they're not going to be the end-all be-all in a match. So with that being said, I do think that kind of wraps up our overview of the Mech Lab. If there has been anything that I've missed, please let me know, and I'll try to address it in the comments. This was done basically just through, you know, scouring the forums for information, as well as interviewing some people on the dev team to get as much accurate information as I could as possible for you guys. So with that in mind, as I did mention, this is going to be a 2-part video series. So now that we have gone through the Mech Lab, the next video I'm going to be doing is going in depth into the difference between Clan and Inner Sphere mechs, and then I'm going to buy a new mech and go step by step in how I build it for you guys. So do make sure to stay tuned for that. Thanks for coming on by, and we will see you guys out in the battlefield.